Good morning, everybody. I'm going to give it just another minute. I think the cold weather's got us running slow today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I don't hear the door anymore. Anybody got any prayer requests this morning? Bruce?
Remember Melanie and Paris Travis everything. She'll be back tomorrow.
Ruby? Oh,
LHS, serious heart disease, and stuff with them.
Ruby, did I see your hand?
Continue to remember me and my family. Remember my two brothers. Remember my daughter Jean, my son Kenny. Remember brother Jean's mom.
Still remember Buddy and Georgia Freeman and her sister, our nation, our military missionaries, and law enforcement, and I still have two sisters that need prayer.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to give God praise. My granddaughter had to have a biopsy this past week, and she was scared. She's been scared to death for the last 2 weeks, but thankfully it come back negative.
Praise the Lord.
And yes, praise the Lord, it was on her bladder, so keep her in your prayers if you will. She is a Christian girl, and I'm just so thankful for that, such a love.
Anybody else? Absolutely. All right, if nobody else has one, if you guys would, let's stand this morning. Tim, do you mind leading us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet in your house again. Just thank you we have that opportunity to bring our needs to you this morning. Pray for each one of these requests that's been mentioned. We just ask, Father, you sweet will just to reach down and touch each one of them in a special way, Father. Just pray for our services today. And we just ask your Spirit to lead and guide us as we look into your word. We just thank you for your many blessings. We pray in your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Alrighty, so I wasn't here last week, but the week before was Easter, and I'm not so sure that I like how our lesson's done this. We're kind of going back in Luke now that we've hit Easter. I was kind of hoping we'd run right into Acts with the full head of steam, but we're going back to some more of Jesus' teachings. Next week we'll still be in Luke as well. So this week we'll be in Luke chapter 21. We're probably going to be a short lesson unless you guys want to participate some. Today's lesson something I think we kind of have some room to debate and have differing opinions on. It's kind of about the end times, the end of Jerusalem as they knew it in Jesus' day. Getting ahead of myself there, but yeah, kind of two sections. We got the first section is kind of the end of Jerusalem. The second section is kind of Jesus's foretelling of what to expect in the future. And before we kind of jump into here, I had kind of just some of my own random thoughts. In your all's opinion, what was Egypt as in the Old Testament when they had the Hebrews as slaves, what was their main sin? Idolatry.
Wasn't it, some reason slaves?
They had slaves. It's a good one.
I don't know that was a sin or not, but that's just what stands.
They definitely mistreated them, which I would say that is a sin for sure. So even before Egypt, we have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in Abraham's day. What was their main sin? What do you guys think their main sin was?
That was,
Sexual sin.
Sexual sins. I got a lot of nods to that. Incest. Going forward, as Joshua and the Israelites were going into Canaan, what was the Canaanites' main sin? What do you think? There was a lot of them, so there could be multiple, you say. And I promise you at the end, I'm going to tell you something different. So we talked a lot about idol worship whenever Tim and I were doing the Old Testament before we jumped into Luke. There was a lot of false god worship. There was a lot of terrible stuff that was done to worship those gods. So let me jump ahead now. So now we're in Jerusalem. Jesus is in Jerusalem. This chapter takes place just before the crucifixion here, and it's some of Jesus' last teachings. What do you think Jerusalem's main sin was? Or Israel as a whole?
I think they was committing all the sins in wicked places like Egypt, Sodom, where I think it's just the whole list of them.
Right. So what can we say the source of sin is then?
Satan.
Satan? I'm gonna change that a little bit and say lack of God. So I'm gonna say the main sin of every one of these countries is they left God. Jerusalem ultimately crucified Jesus, God in man. So the main source here is where's God in their lives? They abandoned that. The same can be said about Sodom and Gomorrah, can be said about Egypt. They all set up their own gods in the place of the one true God, as we know. And so, like I said, I'm probably going to be, if you got your Bibles, flip to Luke chapter 21. We'll start in verse 5. So this first little bit, again, is about Jerusalem, the destruction of Jerusalem, the destruction of the temple. And kind of as we read through this, I want you to think of this. History tends to repeat itself. And we've seen that. So, as I said, we went through these other cities, these other places that were destroyed, and really, the reason we see them destroyed in the Bible, the lack of God. They did not follow God. And that ultimately led to their own destruction. All right, Luke chapter 21, verse 5, it says, "And of some spake of the temple, how it was adorned with goodly stones and gifts, he said, As for these things which ye behold, the days will come in the which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." I'm going to pause there for a second. Does anybody know what the temple looks like now, the temple that was there in Jesus' day? Has anybody seen a picture of it? It's basically a foundation. That's it. It's gone. I believe there's a mosque that's built somewhat on top of where the temple used to be, which is kind of interesting. But it's not there. There's a foundation. There's a couple things that were in the foundation that people can still go and see. But yeah, the temple as they knew it is gone. So verse 7, it says, "And they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass?" Verse 8, "And he said, Take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, For these things must come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Then said he unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines and pestilence and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven. So, of your guys' opinion, what's Jesus saying here?
Be prepared, be ready and watch.
Be prepared, be ready, and watch is what Bruce said. The end of times is intimate. Imminent. Say that again. Imminent. There we go. Imminent.
Bad when your mother-in-law has to tell you how to say something.
I know it is pretty bad.
But she loves it.
I'm sure she does. So, I mean, you can look at this, you can think end times, you can look at this, and there's certainly a judgment coming on Jerusalem, which I meant to look this up. I think Rome ultimately brings. And as I said, history repeats itself. So we can read this, and whether this directly relates to Jerusalem at the time, we see this like cyclical pattern here that kind of repeats itself. Anybody else? All right, I have highlighted here, I'm going to read verse 9 again. It says, But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not by and by. Do you think we see that today? It's kind of a stupid question. Certainly. I think another chapter says wars and rumors of wars. We certainly see that. I've grown up with that my whole life. I'm probably sure you guys, probably since World War II, everybody's grown up with that their whole lives, it seems like. It says, but the end is not by and by. So as I was reading the lesson plan here, the kind of thing that it came up with was that it's kind of a defining trait of our age after Jesus. That we have these wars and commotions. I kind of like commotions. But it says, be not terrified. We've been very blessed in America to not really have wars on our country, but just imagine yourself as just a bystander in a battlefield. Do you think you could stand there and not be terrified? I mean, even if you're a war fighter in a battlefield, I'd say at some point you can be terrified. But it says, be not terrified. These things must first come to pass. So Jesus is basically saying, to me that's saying, I'm with you in this too. Any thoughts or comments?
We should rest, it's easier said than done, but we should rest assured in the fact that no matter how bad things get, that is part of God's ultimate plan.
Absolutely.
That He can't return, the end of time isn't going to happen until all of that happens. So it's just His prophecy and the Bible unfolding in front of us. And it's hard to say, or it's hard to believe that one can be calm and not terrified during these times, because we all have these feelings of uncertainty right now. You never know. Every time a plane flies over, I'm wigged out, like what's going to happen? Is that one of ours or one of theirs? It's just natural feelings, but knowing that God has everything in control, and as His children, we have that peace. It's hard to lean on that, but
It is.
we need to have that in the back of our minds.
It's kind of a funny story going off of that. Then I was coming back, I think from Virginia, Tuesday. I stopped at the rest area, and there was a guy getting up in every person's face and screaming at them as they went past, and I was like, I think I'll go back to my car. So even in a thing like that, I'm a little leery. But yeah.
You talk about being terrified. I've got a camp in Monroe County where that's a natural flyaway for the military jets.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to somebody that's involved with that, and they said they actually use them places for targets. And it's shooting with the active practice. And I've been up there mowing grass before, when all of a sudden one of them comes over, and I won't leave the longest.
I can imagine being somewhere to see it fly over.
Go hide in a hole when it flies over.
Just all of a sudden, it's there.
Yeah, those things are loud.
Yeah. I'd be terrified.
Probably next time you just need to look up at that plane and go,
I've waved at them and everything. I'm having to.
Don't hit me.
You got your little white flag to wave as they go by. I'm going to read verse 10, 11 again. It says, "Then he said unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." Again, we have definitely seen that. You see, we've seen that all through time. We see that going all the way back through the Old Testament. "And great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines and pestilence, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven." So every time we have like a catastrophic event, notable ones that popped in my head right off is like Hurricane Katrina, or that hurricane that went through North Carolina recently. What do you think the Bible's telling us our response should be?
Don't be surprised.
Don't be surprised, for sure. And I think it's definitely kind of an eye-opener that this place is temporary. And that's what Jesus is telling us there in verse 11. Anybody else got a comment before we move on?
We don't know the day or the time or the hour that Jesus is coming. Not even the angels in heaven knows. Only God alone knows that.
Absolutely. Now we got another promise that he is coming for sure someday, and that's what I think he's saying here. Verse 12. "But before all these they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake. And it shall turn to you for a testimony. Settle it therefore in your hearts not to meditate before what ye shall answer. For I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries shall not be able to gainsay or resist." Let's pause there for a second. So Jesus is telling everybody listening to him here, you're going to be persecuted for following me. And that comes in varying degrees. To many of them, it came with very harsh measures. And he's telling them that you're going to be in court. And what's your first thought if you got to go to court? If you got to testify in court? You want to be prepared, right? I've never been to court. Actually, Jacqueline got a jury duty summons, and I think she tried to get out of it. But I hate those things. It's like, any of you guys ever seen or read The Hunger Games? That's what I feel like it is. Your number's getting called. Now you got to go. But anyways,
The best way to get out of that is to act like you know the person.
that's what I told Jacqueline to do.
They don't want any friends or family members in the courtroom.
Yeah. But Jesus is telling him here, verse 14, "Settle it therefore in your hearts not to meditate before what ye shall say." So I think what he's ultimately saying here is, I know all, I'm the ultimate authority, let me be your mouthpiece. Hang on, I wrote something here, but my pen was going out. Oh yeah, the word gainsay there in verse 15. What do you guys think? What's gainsay?
To debate you, or like to not agree.
Yeah, or false account is kind of what I was going for. So they can't gainsay or resist. Why do you think they wouldn't be able to resist if Jesus is kind of leading your words? It's an obvious answer here. Exactly. He knows all. He's over everything. But yet, something up here still wants to doubt him. I think he knows that for sure, and that's kind of what he's given these people assurance. And let's take a pause here. And what do the disciples go out and do after Jesus raises from the dead? What's their task? What do they go do? Proclaim the gospel. Where? They go all over. And now let's take kind of maybe a reality check here. What happens to just about all of them? They're all martyred. So Jesus knows this is serious business that he's warning them about. That if you're going to commit to me, this is what commitment leads to. But in the end, it's worth it. Verse 16.
Hey,
Sorry.
real quick, back to verses 14 and 15. So such a contrast. You know, the Bible tells us many times to think before we use our tongue, right?
Oh, yeah.
Be careful. Here, it's just the opposite. You know, don't think about it. I'm speaking for you
Right.
in this matter.
Yeah, and there's a very specific, though. This is when they're before the courts being accused for being Christians. It's not necessarily telling them, don't study or anything. That's kind of the way I had to think about it, because if I did, that leaves this place for me to just be lazy. But that's not at all what he's saying. Yeah, I like that. He's telling you not to think before you speak. And in James, we know, think before you speak. Verse 16. And ye shall be betrayed both by parents and brethren and kinsfolk and friends, and some of you shall they cause to be put to death. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. Let's pause there. Verse 16 is talking about being betrayed by family members or close friends. Do you guys have any examples of that happening today? Do you think that happens today? Again, in America, we're very blessed. But I saw, with the war in Iran, a lot of this stuff's kind of fresh on the mind, so it pops up on Facebook and stuff. I saw a woman that converted to Christianity and is being sentenced to death for converting to Christianity over there. And as I understand it, the family members are often the people that turn those people in. So this happens. I mean, it happens today. It happened to them, and it still happens today.
Mac, we may not be in the United States at the point where they're killing people for your belief, but there still is some sort, in some way, opposition for people who stand for Christ.
Absolutely.
The NBA player
Right.
that lost his whole career because he said he was a Christian. And there's been countless people that they'll lose everything they've got. They'll lose their whether it be their careers or there's been a couple famous music artists that have stood for Christ over the years that have completely gone down the drain in their career because they stand for Christ.
Yeah.
So we're well on that. I mean, it might be 20, 30, 40 years before we get to the point where they're killing people for saying you believe in Jesus. But it'll eventually happen.
So here's another one that's good. Another one that hits kind of close to home is up in Canada recently. Their legislation passed a law that basically makes all forms of anything that's against homosexuality a jail sentence. So they had, which included the Bible. It specified that is included. So they had some, I don't know if, I'm trying to think what the right word is. They had a number of their legislature stand up with their Bibles over their hearts that they're going to go to jail rather than really support this legislation. And it's real sad because it's not clear what it's going to lead to, but that's certainly the way they think it's shifting, and it's happening close to us. Where'd we end off at? 17? All right, verse 18. But there shall not an hair of your head perish. So Jesus is telling them, this terrible stuff's going to happen, but then we almost kind of get a contradiction here in verse 18. What do you think he's saying there? You whispered very softly. The time's not yet? So do you think everybody that's ever been persecuted, their hair didn't a hair on their head didn't perish? Do you think he's referring this to everybody? Here's the way I kind of take it. That God's the ultimate authority in what's going to happen. And if he's going to use you in whatever way he's going to use you. That's kind of the way I take that verse. Verse 19, in your patience possess ye your souls. Move on to 20. And ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. So now he's moving directly to Jerusalem of what's going to happen. And now remember, he just had the triumphal entry. Everybody thinks he's the Messiah. He's coming in. He's going to overthrow Rome. And now he's in the garden talking to his followers, or he's in the Mount of Olives talking to his followers. He's talking about Jerusalem's destruction here. Verse 21, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. So what's this the vengeance for? To Jerusalem. What do you think? What happens a couple days later if Jesus is in Jerusalem now teaching? He's crucified. So what's the vengeance for here? Sin, the lack of God. They crucified Jesus on the cross. That's the vengeance that they never turned away from their sin. That's the vengeance that's coming. Verse 23. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon the people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down under the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So just to tell you what happens here, Jerusalem is overtaken. There's ultimately about 1 million of the Jews that are killed in that, and there's some near 100,000 that are taken as slaves. So that is Jesus' warning here that this is coming. I think it happens some 70 to 90 years after this, but ultimately happens. I kind of highlighted that times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Anybody want to take an opinion on what that means? I have no clue, just so you know. I can take a guess. Do you think we're in the time of the Gentiles now? Yeah, I certainly think so. They didn't really understand it then, and even I don't think the disciples understood it maybe until a little after Jesus resurrected, was he came to die for all, not just the Jews.
I think back in the time of Christ, people was only in two categories, if I'm not mistaken. There's either Jews or Gentiles.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, I think what they're saying, the time of the Gentiles here then is, Jesus died on the cross. We're not living under the sacrificial system that the law had. We're living under grace, which to me is the time of the Gentiles. I'm going to read a couple of these things here because I thought they were really good. It says, all of creation is marching towards that glorious and climactic day when every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess Jesus as Lord to the glory of the Father. Never let the free will of man or the present reign of wickedness tempt you into believing God is not in absolute control of the flow of all history. Occasionally, he gives us strong reminders of that fact. Now the second one here, it says, throughout history, God has intervened to continue the growth of his kingdom. A tide was oddly kept back for 12 hours, saving numerous Christians in Holland from death by the murderous Duke of Alva. Protestant England was saved when a violent storm scattered the Spanish Armada. Various religious persecutions throughout the world led believers to new lands and peoples, spreading the gospel as they went. Have you guys ever been reading something and thought, wow, that looks like God's intervention? Anybody got an example of God intervening in history?
The dust of the doom.
What is it?
The
Oh, the one that's making the sky look red and purple? Is that what you're talking about?
Back several years ago, they had
Oh.
a dust storm, and then whoever was against Israel couldn't fight them because of that dust storm.
Really? I didn't hear about that. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, there's several. I think if we're pressed, we could probably think of a couple. So let's jump on to verse 25. This is the part where I think we kind of separate from the end of Jerusalem to Jesus talking about the end times. Verse 25, "And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them with fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken." I know we kind of already talked about this, but do you think we see this already? Absolutely, I do too. Is your hand up, Tim?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, verse 27. "And they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift your heads, for your redemption is nigh." So again, it's kind of obvious that we're shifting from Jerusalem. We talked about Jerusalem just being destroyed. He paints this picture of really kind of gloom and doom, and now he's talking about his second coming and redemption again. Verse 29. "And he spake to them in a parable. Behold, the fig tree and all the trees, when they now shoot forth, ye see and know your own selves that summer is now nigh at hand." Has anybody seen the trees blooming?
Yeah.
I know it's pretty. It's probably about my favorite time when the trees start blooming. I don't like the dry, dead leaves all over the ground.
They're going to fall off tonight.
I know, they might. If you didn't hear that, Paul said they're going to fall off tonight. 31. "So likewise ye, when you see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." So Jesus is basically saying, you see, you can tell when the seasons are changing. We see the seasons change, and the spring, we start blooming. In the summer, we got full bloom. It's nice and green outside. In the fall, the leaves change. In the winter, it's cold, and I don't think we have too many people in here that like that. But just as we know the seasons are changing, Jesus is saying, I've given you kind of a map here. You can know when the end times are here, basically. So now in 32, he says, "This generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled." Anybody want to take a stab at who this generation is? So generation as a whole, different generations of people, or not? Or do you think it's one specific generation? Generation of Christians. I like that. That's what you meant by us, I'm assuming. Yeah, because I guess some people take this verse very literally to say, well, all of Jesus' followers here are dead, and these things didn't come to pass. But no, the generation there it's talking about is us as Christians' time on earth in general. I'm going to read another one of these. These little tidbits they give I thought were really good for this lesson. On May 19th, 1780, darkness took over the noon sky in New England. Many became frightened that Judgment Day was nearing. Panic ensued throughout the area as darkness drifted south. Colonel Davenport, the Speaker of the Connecticut House of Representatives in Hartford, addressed the body of representatives who were growing anxious and proposing an immediate adjournment by saying, "The day of judgment is either approaching or it is not. If it is not, there is no cause for adjournment. If it is, I choose to be found doing my duty. Therefore, I wish that candles be brought." So instead of fearing, that God or Jesus was coming back, judgment was upon us all, He wants to be found doing what he was called to do, and that was leading the state of Connecticut. And I think that's a great example for all of us. You know, we're told Jesus is coming back. It's not something for us to fear, but we need to be found doing what we're supposed to be doing. Just like Colonel Davenport there.
You're talking about the sins, you know, and the sins is listed here in Galatians. You know, I'll just read here. This is chapter 5 here. I'm going to start here at verse 16 in chapter 5 Galatians. For this I say, then walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. These are contrary one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if ye be led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelling, which I tell you before, I also told you in time past, which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. And the sins.
Yeah.
And I'd say in Sodom and Gomorrah needed all that stuff was going on.
I'd say about anybody at any point in time could probably meet all of those stuffs. Any nation, I'll say. Verse 34. It says, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, so that that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye be accounted worthy to escape all things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. So I kind of want to focus here on what it says there in verse 34, and cares of this life, so that day come upon you unawares. So I think ultimately what Jesus is saying here is stay focused on what you're supposed to stay focused on, because he knows how easy it is for us to care more about what's in my house than you know what's going on in my heart. Any comment? Go ahead.
I remember when I was growing up, that I guess the Great Northern Lights, they call it, very visible to me. I don't know what year it was. I just remember talking to something else growing up. I think a lot of people thought that was the end of the time.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that, like I said, I remember that as a child when we talked about it.
Well, since you brought that back up, I wish I would have gotten a picture of this. I'd have put it up on the projector. I was thinking about this when I was studying for this. I was driving through Virginia. This was a couple years ago. And at the time, there was, I don't know, one of the guys that said the end is coming, and they had a date. They mathematically figured out when Jesus was coming back from the Bible. And they had a big billboard. I passed it several times, and I remember thinking, if there's one day Jesus isn't going to come back, it's probably that one. And I passed that billboard, and it was like 3 days after the day he was supposed to be back. And I wish I would have took a picture of it because it was funny. I probably shouldn't think stuff like that's funny, but I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, I wish I would have got a picture of that, because we have these people that are just, you know, coming back on this day, and it really just kind of makes all of us look silly
It
in
is
a way.
funny because it automatically in your mind makes you think, well, they don't know their Bible.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. Like,
Well, you know, through past years, there's been different situations. People said, you know, the sin is going to come at a certain time, several different times.
I can think of several just in the last, I don't know, probably 10 years, when they've said, hey, he's coming back on this date. And then the one guy that had the billboards up, I think he said, oh, I made a mathematical error. And then it was like 6 months later. But it didn't have the billboards for the second one. Yeah.
I had a young couple come to my house when that tsunami happened. It was destroying, I think it was Japan, China, wherever it was. And, I mean, they were totally scared out of their minds. They said, the first things they said was, is God coming? And I said, yes, but no, I didn't mean to enhance what they were thinking. And, I mean, this young man, he just fell apart with tears. But I said, but not tonight, not during were scared of. And they were literally, I mean, terrified that that was the end of time, because they'd been watching it on the news. And, well, if anybody ever watched it, I did, and I said it was an atrocity, buddy. So it would have scared you if you didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know my mother used to teach history, and she told me, she said that they said back in the days of World War I, they said that'd be the war to end all wars, but they was wrong, and she said back then they just called it World War.
Mm-hmm.
Then when World War II came along, then they realized that they was wrong, and that wasn't the war to end all wars, World War I.
Right. Kind of back to what Donna said, Answers in Genesis, the people that run like the Creation Museum and the Ark, they had a man on their staff. He's since passed away, but his name was Andrew Snelling. He was their death and suffering counselor or pastor there, and he said something that I thought was great, and I heard him say it listening to him online on something, and it stuck with me. And he's talking about death and suffering, and he's being a little sarcastic about how, hey, they're hiring me as the death and suffering pastor. It's so great, so encouraging. But he goes on to say that the reason terrible things happen, we see these catastrophes, is because we need a reminder that life is temporary, and ultimately we're going to meet our Savior. And I thought it was so good. I wish I would have wrote down the exact quote, because the way he said it, it was so good. But that sticks with me. Every time I see like some catastrophic event, I think of his exact quote there. The reason that these terrible things happen is because life here is temporary, and ultimately we go to meet Jesus. You know, whether we're ready for him or not. Whenever people are scared, they think the end's coming. That's our opportunity to witness to them, right? That's really it for today. Does anybody else have anything?
Fear is one of the biggest tools that the devil uses to get us out from under the covering of the Lord. And like you were talking about that guy, you know, it's a witness to how false prophets operate. And somebody that doesn't have a good relationship with the Lord, with the Holy Spirit, would see that and operate out of fear. And like I said, that's a spirit that the Lord doesn't want us to walk in.
Exactly. And if you think about it, you could almost see how somebody like that would think. I want people to be prepared, but then he ends up going down this whole wrong, we'll say, rabbit hole.
I think God sometimes in those natural disasters is to let people know that he's still in charge and he's still in control.
The Lord actually, He warns us in the Word when it says, beware of false prophets.
I'm pretty sure that wasn't like the first couple verses I read, if I'm thinking. He's telling Jerusalem to beware people coming in his name. So absolutely, yep.
You know, I said, Jesus said that be aware of false prophets which come to you in sheep clothing, maybe they're raven wolves. And some old timers a long time ago called them werewolves. Thought the wolf in sheep's clothing, a werewolf.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm pretty sure it says, I don't know where, and I will look it up, but it says test the spirits or something like that.
I think it's in Romans. Try the spirits. I think that's in Romans.
Matt, do you remember the whole Y2K?
I do.
Scare, the 2000 scare when nobody knew if the computers were going to cycle over, the 2 was going to cycle over from the 1, and the whole world went nuts thinking that was the end of the world.
I remember.
We're just the human race. We're just so fragile, you know, in comparison to what God is. If something like that can totally just uptick the world, ultimately God is in control of everything.
Yeah, I remember that very distinctly because we didn't even have a computer in our house at the time.
Everybody stayed up till midnight that night.
Yeah, I remember that one distinctly. All right, guys. Go ahead, Deb.
I understood though why people get so worried about that, because to me, death is the end for you, and you can die at any moment. The world doesn't have to end, and that's the end for you. like they prepared for Y2K and they prepare for this and prepare for that, but they don't prepare to die.
Right. So if you, yeah, I agree. But if you,
Worst case scenario, we'd have had to go back to live in Lake Pilgrim.
Probably be better.
but if this is all you got, if you don't believe in God at all, and this is all you got, I think I'd probably be rather concerned with all I got if it's ending. So I guess that's where the mind